So looking at the chair template, if you want to look over the size of the job that you're going to do on a CNC, you come up over here to the left side of the drawing tab and you'll see set job dimensions and origin at the top left. Click on that and that'll show you the size of that white block. That white block represents the piece of wood that you're going to be using, or other material if it's not wood. In our case, we have 14 inches of width, 37 inches of length, and 3/4 of an inch thickness. We currently have the X and Y datum, or 0 point, set to the 0 in the center. We could move it to any one of these corners, but we could leave it set here. We'll click OK. And then we want to select our drawing. As you guys imported this file, there's nothing to do editing wise, so we don't need to cover that right now. To select all of the items, you can either select them one at a time and then hold the Shift key to select multiple, or you can click down here on the bottom and move up and left. Anywhere that the rectangle touches will be selected, and that selects the entirety of the drawings. We want to create a tool path, which means the file that the CNC is going to use in order to cut out the pieces. So if you look up here on the left side of the drawing tab, on the left side of the screen, to the right side of the drawing tab, you're going to see a blue arrow in a box, and it says when you hover over it, switch to toolpath commands. Click on that, and then that'll take you over to this sidebar that's labeled toolpaths. Here we see the settings tab. If you needed to change the depth of material or the thickness of material because yours ended up thinner or thicker, you could do that here without affecting the whole file. And you can also see the reminder, that your XY datum is in the center of your piece. You look over here, you'll see all the different tool paths that you have the ability to work with. We're going to click on the profile toolpath. That profile toolpath will give us the cutout. We're going to select the thickness of material, which you can measure with a digital caliper to find out the exact thickness of it. We're going to select our tool. I have pre-selected on here, just because it happens to be the last tool I ran on my CNC, a 1/4 inch end mill. When we have the 1/4 inch end mill, which is the tool you'll also be using, we want to make sure that it's somewhere around 150 inches per minute feed rate. Feed rate means how fast it moves forward through the material. When it goes around a corner or things like that, it will probably go a little slower, and that's just fine. We want to make sure our pass depth is about 3/16 of an inch of depth per pass. And then our plunge rate should be somewhere around 80 inches a minute. And we're going to come down here and click select once all those settings are the same. We're going to make sure that the circle where it says outside tool path is selected for machining, and that'll show arrows on the outside. If we selected the inside, it would change to the inside, but we obviously want it on the outside so that these can remain the size of the outline. Next box down, we're going to select that box so that it allows us to enter a number here. We're going to click the 2 on the keyboard so that we have a last pass that is 2/200ths of an inch or 20/200ths of an inch inside of all the other tool paths. The reason for that is each of these tool paths, or times that it goes around at 3/16 of an inch deep, will leave a little mark on your piece. Those are called witness marks. You want to get rid of those, and the simplest way to do that is to have a separate pass that's just a tiny bit in And the reality is the first passes are going to be just outside of these lines, and that last one will be directly up against the line. We don't need to add tabs to it, and we could easily add a ramp to it if we wanted. And what that does is it makes it so that when it plunges, it goes down, not straight down in, and it leaves a little bit less witness marks, so it's not a bad thing to do. And we'll specify the distance we want that to plunge. As we're only going 3/16 of an inch, we don't need it to plunge for a very long distance. We can simply set it for about a 1/2 inch or 0.5. Then we come down here and we select everything under the word name, and we change that to what it is. Chair legs. Oops, wrong letter. And then we just hit the word calculate on the bottom left, and the machine thinks for a moment, or rather the software thinks for a moment, and then you see these red and blue lines. The red lines show where it starts from. So it's going to start in the middle of our board. Looks like it's going to move over to here and then work its way around and around until it gets to here, and then it'll come up here to this one and cut it out, and so on and so forth. So you can see our toolpath name over here. The box is checked. That means everything's going to be highlighted. Because this software will render a 3D effect, if you click, hold, and move your mouse, or rather your finger on the mouse pad, you'll see your piece of wood go sideways. Then we can zoom in on it, and each of these lines represent the tool paths. So we're going to start up here, go down a little bit, go to the next one, go down a little bit, next one, go down a little bit, and that final 4th pass, which will be slightly inset. Let's see, if we click this button up here where it says Z, it'll go back to the full-on view, and we can zoom in again. And now you can see the first 3 tool paths are just straight down, and then the last one is ever so slightly inset from the first 3. That's that 20 thou difference. If you hit the F on the keyboard, everything snaps back to fit, where it fits to the screen. Now if you wish, you can click Preview Visible Tool Paths over here on the right, and that will show you a preview of the cutter working when it's clicked up here, up above where it says Animate Tool Path, or excuse me, Animate Preview and Draw Tool. And we will click Preview Visible Tool Path and watch the machine or the software mock the cutout. And there you can see all of the pieces of your chair legs being cut out of that panel. You can see how much more tight we can get our pieces. Let me zoom in a little bit. There's no way, unless you're extremely good, that you would have this little waste doing it with the bandsaw and then the template cutout method. It just is so much more efficient to use when you're using the CNC. Alright, that pretty much sums up how the software works in creating a file for the CNC to use. On a presentation note, if you wanted, for instance, let's say you were making this for a client. If you wanted, you can double click on the waste material with the point of your cursor directly over it, and that waste material or offcut material disappears. So you could do this in order to show your client what it looks like. As you can tell in this drawing, it would take a little bit of time because there's so many little pieces up in here that you have to click on individually. It's doable, not absolutely necessary. Okay, so to move that file from the computer to the CNC, we come over here on the right again, where it's the Toolpath Preview tab, and click Close. And then that brings us back to all of our tool paths and all of our options down here. The one that you need to worry about is on the bottom right, and it says Save Toolpath. Looks like a little flash drive. Click on that, and then we make sure that the machine that we are going to use is selected here. Then we're going to click Save Toolpath, and we want to insert our flash drive, which you can see here I don't have inserted on my computer. Select the flash drive, and then click the word Save down here in order to save the file to the flash drive. We insert that flash drive into the computer at the CNC. Once everything's warmed up and ready to go, and our piece of wood or panel is attached to the CNC bed, we can process that file and cut out our parts. Now, one more fun thing you can do, it's not always dead on accurate, but you can hover over and you'll be able to see a little square pop up, and it'll tell you approximately how much time it's going to take to cut out your pieces. Here it shows 17 minutes. So give or take a minute or two, that's about what the CNC is going to do when it comes to cutting out your pieces. Another way to do that is to click here where it says Summary of Toolpaths including estimated times. And here you can see the same thing lasts a little bit longer, so you can catch it better with your eye if you're not familiar with what you're looking at. So you should be able to have these chair legs, once your panel is all glued up, you should be able to have them cut out in about anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, I would say. Thanks for watching.